Hello, I'm Derek Fildebrand, publisher of the Western Standard. You're watching The Pipeline today on April 28th, 2021. Thank you very much for joining us. We've got an exciting show today. Today, we're going to be talking about the latest federal polls. Where are the federal parties at? Big spoiler alert. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole has completely tanked in these polls following the announcement of his new carbon tax plan. We're going to be diving into that. We're going to get into also what the party across the aisles from him is up to, the Liberals introducing sweeping new regulations and censorship of online content, no longer just going after professional content producers like the Western Standard or the mainstream media companies, but now going after everyday people just posting to YouTube. We'll get into the details. And of course, we've been talking about it regularly. The Rogue Rodeo in Bowden, Alberta, coming up this weekend. We're going to talk about what we can expect from the provincial government, from the police, and from the rodeo itself. We'll bring you all of the details. Before we get started, though, I want to thank all of our Western Standard members. We are blown away by the support you've shown us in the last few months here. It's been incredible in allowing us to improve our operations significantly. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, please go to westernstandardonline.com/membership and take out a 15-day free trial, see if you like it. And today's show is sponsored by EndAlbertaLockdown.com. EndAlbertaLockdown.com is running an advocacy and lobbying campaign trying to force the provincial government to end provincial lockdowns and other of the more hardcore restrictions that EndAlbertaLockdown.com for more information. So joining me today, I've got Western Standard news editor Dave Naylor coming to me from an undisclosed location in British Columbia. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well, Derek. Thanks.
And joining me in the Western Standard studio today is Corey Morgan, Alberta political columnist and host of the Corey Morgan Show. How you doing, Corey?
Very good, thanks.
Well, let's jump into it. Erin O'Toole support is way down in recent polls, as well as support for the Conservative Party of Canada as we stare down the barrel of a potential election. Dave, why don't you fill us in?
This is a new Abacus poll that came out yesterday, Derek, and when we saw the results, I think we were certainly both shocked. Abacus went across the country and asked people to name who would they prefer as prime minister. All party allegiances aside, just who would you prefer? 31% of the people said Justin Trudeau. Only 18% said Erin O'Toole would make the best prime minister. 18%, less than 1 in 5. And Jagmeet Singh was right nipping at O'Toole's heels with 17%. So he's only 1% behind O'Toole. I think the only good thing that O'Toole could possibly take out of this poll is that 28% are still undecided. So his only hope would be to get most of those undecided voters, Derek. Nationally, when you do put in the party allegiances, Abacus found that the Liberals would get 36% of the vote, the Conservatives 29%, NDP 17%, the Green Party 7%, and the BQ standing at 30% within Quebec. So I think, Derek, it's just another case of the hits keep coming for O'Toole ever since he did the carbon tax flip-flop a week or so ago. It's been nothing but bad for him.
Yeah, these are not some pretty numbers. Actually, maybe before we go to Corey, you can update us on the other numbers. We've got impressions of Erin O'Toole. That was a poll that came out just a few days earlier. For all the leaders, they add up the people with a positive impression of a leader and the negative impression. They come up with a net approval. This has seemingly gone from bad to worse. Why don't you fill us in on that?
Sure. This is strictly about leader impressions. Again, Trudeau enjoying a much higher rate than O'Toole. Trudeau is at a 37% positivity impression. negatives at 42% for a net score of -5. Then when you throw O'Toole in, he's only got a positive ranking from 20%. Let's go back to that 1 in 5 figure we talked about earlier. Negative impressions are at 34%. So that's a whopping net score of a negative -14. Singh, on the other hand, is having a bit of a bounce. He's got a positive impression of 33% of Canadians polled and a negative impression of 26%, Derek, for a bump of +7. If forced to choose just between O'Toole and Trudeau, most are choosing Trudeau, 60%. Only 40% would pick O'Toole over Trudeau if that's the only choice you have. And interestingly, Trudeau would be the preference of 62% of Bloc supporters and 55% of Green supporters, 76% of NDP supporters, and 64% of the undecided. So extremely bad poll numbers for O'Toole all around.
Yeah, not a lot of good news in there. Actually, I read one poll a little bit differently than you. You said that the only good news was that there's so many unsure. If we look at those numbers, though, unsure is beating O'Toole. O'Toole is in third place, almost tied for fourth with Singh. He's losing terribly to Trudeau in the preferred prime minister numbers, and he's even getting his ass kicked by unsure. I'd be interested to know how many of those people voted Conservative in the last few elections. And then within the margin of error, just 1 point ahead, nearly tied with Jagmeet Singh. I'd actually say that the only positive news for Aaron O'Toole in that poll is that he's ahead of the People's Party leader, Maxime Bernier, and the Green Party leader, whose name I still think is Elizabeth May, regardless of who act. I don't care. It'll be 4 elections from now. Elizabeth May will still probably be thought of as the leader of that party. Corey, not a lot of good news for Aaron O'Toole. What do you think is driving this?
Well, that particularly those polls, they're about who you would want to see as prime minister. So that's pretty broad. It's looking at the individual, not the policies and things like that. And I think he took that gamble with the carbon tax and lost big. Not only, we'll see more. What's going to be more telling, I think, is the polls on who you would vote for versus who is the leader. But you lose credibility as a leader when you throw your supporters under the bus like that. That's trust broken, and it's showing. That's what's showing right now. People say, well, why would I want to look at that man as a prime minister if he's so willing to completely go back on something he'd been so strongly in support of or against not so long ago? It's hard to trust this man and envision him as a prime minister. And Trudeau's been in for quite a while. Like, the luster should be fading from him, and I think it is. That big undecided. There's a bunch of people, they just don't like any of them. But that means the up-and-comer has got to be the one filling that void. It should be O'Toole that's starting to dig into that undecided, and he's not. And this is very bad news.
Well, if we look at the trends over time, things were already bad for Aaron O'Toole. So you can see his numbers really started to part from kind of a balance of essentially a net zero of negative and positive impressions in around mid-November. And then around mid-November, you can really see his net negatives increase over his net positives. And then they've just continued to spike up to a net negative of 34, his positives down to 18. That follows the announcement of the carbon tax. Now, not everything is the carbon tax. I don't think he was particularly liked well before. I think a lot of people didn't really know who he was outside of the Conservative Party and the media class. But now people are starting to figure out who he is, and I don't think they like what they see. 9 times out of 10 in Canadian politics, if you've got the Liberals offering liberalism and you've got the Conservatives offering liberalism, well, they're going to go for the real thing. Why not? If you're interviewing for a job in a position, let's say I'm interviewing for we're interviewing for a position. And they're going to do the same thing, but one of them likes doing it and says, I really believe in doing this job. Well, I'm going to hire that person 10 times out of 10 over the guy who says, well, I'm just going to do the job because I need the job. I'm going to go for the guy who's enthusiastic about it. And that's the problem with Conservatives doing this kind of thing. I think it's gone from O'Toole and the Conservatives being a lesser evil to just as bad. I really just don't see any point in electing the Conservatives at this point if they're going to be doing virtually the same thing on every file. And Frank, can we really trust them on anything else he's saying? He's flip-flopped on, regardless with how you feel about this, he was supposed to welcome social conservatives in the party. Well, he cut their throat, threw them out. He was supposed to be true blue. He's going to be a fiscal conservative. Well, he's not even promising to balance the budget until the end of 3 majority terms in government. And as we discussed, I think last week, there hasn't been a 3-term majority conservative prime minister since Sir John A. Macdonald. So good luck with that. And now the carbon tax. On all of these, equalization, they support the Liberal policy. On all of the big files, especially for Westerners, there's really just no discernible difference at this time. So, I think it's actually better for the Conservatives to lose this election, learn some lessons, and try to come back stronger next time. I don't think they're at any real risk of winning the election as it is, but I think it's actually in the Conservative movements and the Conservative Party's interest to lose this election and to lose it badly.
Well, yeah, the only question now is gone to whether Trudeau's going to get a minority or majority. The only thing saving O'Toole right now is that the vaccine rollout has been so blundered. And again, it doesn't seem to be impacting Trudeau in the polls, but it's enough that they won't pull the pin right now. They're not going to go into an election while infections are raging in Quebec and Ontario and Alberta. So he's probably bought reprieve until fall. But, he's got a whole lot of ground to somehow make up between now and then. And, yeah, trying to out-liberal the Liberals along the way isn't going to work. No.
Okay, well, let's switch it to what the other Liberal Party is doing. Justin Trudeau's government with, I can never remember his first name, but Jabot.
Stephen
Jabot, Liberal Minister of Heritage. I always thought that was a curious title for a department normally obsessed with destroying our heritage, is introducing sweeping new censorship laws beyond the very dangerous censorship laws we've already got in Canada here. Dave, why don't you tell us what's going on?
I'll talk about doing a flip-flop. Here's another perfect governmental example, Derek. Back in November, Stephen Guilbeault said there was no way that he was going to regulate YouTube. And we all know how popular YouTube is, and I'm not sure how you would go about regulating it to begin with. But the Liberals did a flip-flop. On Friday, the Heritage Committee voted that, yes, in fact, the government would censor and regulate YouTube. And now they threw up their hands and said, okay, no, don't worry, individual people. It's not going to be you. It's going to be basically they're making YouTube in charge of their own destiny, and said that any CRTC complaints, YouTube would be called there, not individual people. But, again, Derek, it's just, it's another government flip-flop from a couple months ago when they said they weren't going to do it. In the Commons yesterday, Guilbeault, under questioning from the opposition, said he was going to do it, and it's something that has to be done. The Tory opposition said it was just a breach of charter rights of Canadians' freedom. But YouTube is just the start of it. We're waiting to hear what else he's going to do in terms of regulating news online, regulating comments online. He's gone so far as to say that, hurtful comments need to be reported and taken off immediately. Beverly McLaughlin, the former chair of the Supreme Court, said that there needs to be a process in place where this can happen in the space of a minute, where if I see Derek has offended me on something on Twitter, I can press the emergency button. It gets called up in a e-court in Ottawa, and somebody says, yes, that's wrong, or no, it's right. It can stay. We know
I don't say anything offensive around the office.
No, exactly. You don't need to worry at all. But you know what? It's they've changed they've moved the goalposts, as Corey likes to say, moving those goalposts. They've said they weren't going to do it. Now they say they are. So I think we just need to wait for the other shoe to drop to find out where they're taking this.
Well, this is a classic case of not throwing the frog into the boiling water, but turning up the heat. This is the way censorship always works. You never start with just banning oppositional newspapers. You start with some regulations around the edge, and then those regulations become more severe and more severe and more severe. Then you start with outright deplatforming and banning certain more extreme publications, and then over time they move closer and closer to banning mainstream publications or censoring mainstream publications that disagree with government. This is what happens when people are stupid enough to trust government to be able to regulate opinion and thought. Sure, there's always extreme and nasty opinions out there that we wouldn't like to see. But by censoring those people, you're opening up the door to censoring reasonable people. That's why you have freedom of speech or you don't. There is no such thing as moderate freedom of speech, or to use a very Canadian term, reasonable and justified free speech. If it's not advocating physical harm to someone or slander, it's free speech. Where do you think this is going to go? I mean, the good news is the Conservatives are opposed to it. The bad news is the Conservatives are probably going to adopt it like they do almost every other Liberal policy within a few years. It's just a matter of time until the Conservatives support this. As I say, if you want to know what the Conservatives are going to be 5 years or 10 years from now, look at where the Liberals are today. So the Conservatives are opposed to this now, but I'm not sure that opposition is going to last in the long term. Corey, where do you think this is going to go from here?
Well, I think it's going to be a long cycle. I mean, they're getting to the point, and that's where a lot of people and the woke and the snowflakes out there want to see it illegalized to hurt people's feelings. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. As you said, nobody should be able to get out there and threaten somebody or, tell people to commit a crime or, truly propose hate against identifiable groups or slander somebody. But they can be an arsehole. I mean, I won't make it 10 minutes on Twitter by the new standards. I'll be done.
Oh, you're I'm not gonna say anything.
I've never pretended to be a nice guy. Hey, if you're following my account, be ready for a jerk. That's what I do. But people lose that whole thing of, if you don't like what I'm saying, don't follow. It's not that complicated. But no, they want the state to intervene. And that's where you get this really ugly, fuzzy, blurry line. As you said, you've got to keep it clear. No, the speech is paramount. Live with it. Block the person, move on, kick some dirt on it and walk away. But that's not where we're at. But I mean, it is interesting that maybe this might be what leads to the breakup of the social media giants and monopolies. Because, I mean, it is a game of whack-a-mole. Sure, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook are the dominant ones out there. But, I mean, people are determined. They will squeak off to Rumble, and they'll move off to Twitch, and they'll move over to other platforms, and it might finally start chipping at these heavyweights a bit. But this is a long-run game.
Yeah. I don't know. It's dangerous. Doesn't seem there's much we can do to stop it. The federal NDP under Singh have indicated that they're likely to support this amendment to the government's own bill. The whole bill is bunk and should be scrapped. The government's got no business regulating the internet, regulating broadcasts at all. I mean, the beginning of this is just the CRTC, the Canadian Radio and Television Canada. It's or Commission, sorry. And that's been around forever. And people don't know this, but that is controlling all of even the private sector, so-called private sector broadcasters in Alberta. There's limits to what they can say. There's limits to what they can do. They're subject to all sorts of things. If the government doesn't like what you're doing, they're going to pull your license. If they don't like what you're doing in your new, like Sun News Network was, they just won't give you a license on par with what all your competitors have. So the government already exerts massive control over broadcast. Now they're coming in to regulate online broadcast, but they said, we swear it's going to stop at, regulating CTV and CBC, maybe regulating Western Standard. No, now it's going to go down to Corey just posting an angry rant on his private YouTube page. That's going to be illegal too. It's going to be under their regulation. So it is wickedly dangerous stuff that we're doing, and it doesn't seem to be. I mean, the Conservatives should be prepared to burn the place down over this, but they're speaking in opposition, but they're not going to really go to the wall because they're terrified of being labeled apologists for hate.
Well, and the Liberals have got a de facto majority anyways. I mean, Jagmeet's Trudeau's little puppy dog. He doesn't want to trigger an election right now in the midst of the pandemic either. So Trudeau can put any bill forward he wants. It's going to get through. Jagmeet will stomp his little feet and then he'll support it. I hope it wouldn't be considered too offensive saying he'd stomp his little feet, but that's the sort of thing that it's amazing what, you look at the net, how insane the woke are. They're insane. And that's who is going to be deciding what we're allowed to say and what we aren't. And this is not somewhere we need to go.
This is 2021. Well, let's bring it to something much more fun, much more uplifting. This weekend in Bowden, Alberta, is the End the Lockdown rodeo. The Western Standard's going to be there. We'll get into the role we're going to play in a bit here, but let's just talk about the event itself. Dave, tell us what's happening in Bowden this weekend.
Good time, Derek. A good time will be happening. It's going to be a rodeo put on by the Northcott family. They're a historic Alberta ranching family going back several generations, and their business has been absolutely devastated by COVID and all the lockdowns, and they've just reached the end of their rope, Derek. They cannot lose any more money. They cannot take this lockdown anymore. So they are having an end the lockdown rodeo, and it's going to be a full competition rodeo over 3 days. They've got camping. They've got guest speakers. Hell, they've even got Corey Morgan going. So I mean, it doesn't get much more fun than that. But it's going to be interesting to see what the politicians do. Alberta Health Services already sent them several nasty letters saying, "Don't do it, or you'll be in big trouble." But what are they going to do, Derek? You know, in theory, there could be several thousand people there enjoying themselves on a long weekend, and I can't see the RCMP coming in masse and ticketing everybody. Nor can I really see them doing check stops on the highway out of town on Sunday. So it's going to be an interesting event. It's going to be supporting a long-time Alberta family that has just reached the end of their rope.
Well, actually, it's not just Corey going. Corey was kind of the impetus behind this whole thing with us, but it's I'm going to be there. I'm bringing the trailer up for the weekend. I might bring my smoker and make a brisket, an illegal brisket, I guess. We're
Those
gonna
ones taste best.
Yeah, we're gonna have James and Daryl there. We're bringing up a good crew from our Calgary headquarters to this rodeo. Dave, I guess you're gonna miss it because you're absconded out in Lotus Land there for a bit. But
sorry, Derek. I do encourage everybody that's going, keep an eye out for those new Western Standard jackets you guys will be flaunting.
Oh yeah, we've got all sorts of new swag coming up. The Western Standard is actually a sponsor of the rodeo. This segment we're doing right now, though, is not sponsorship. We're just doing this because this is interesting. This is something we're doing. Well, before we get into what Western Standard's going to be doing at the rodeo, Corey, why don't you tell us about, what did you hear from Ty Northcott? I guess he's kind of the patriarch of a very famous rodeo family in central Alberta. Why don't you tell us just why is he doing this? What's going on? What can we expect?
Yeah, well, his back's against the wall. I mean, it's a business people don't think about a lot. These are specialty businesses. There's not a whole lot of them. I mean, it's quite a unique sort of industry, and that's why there's only a handful of families do it. You hear of the Northcotts, the Kesslers, and some of the others that raise these specialized animals, or as Ty refers to them as his animal athletes. And it's not like they've been shut down for over a year. They haven't had any productions. It's like any other business. You've got to get out there. And these are livestock. You can't put them on a shelf and just store them for a year.
They cost money to have, even if you're not using them.
They cost money. They age. They need training. They need feeding. They need veterinary care. His herd is way smaller than it used to be already. And it's not like this industry can just start up again if you let these herds and this livestock run down. These are specialized animals. You can't go down to the milk barn and grab a couple of cows and make a bull riding event out of it, or grab some of these old trail horses and use them for the saddle broncs. These are specialized animals. So he said enough. He's either going to look at having this family. As he said, his father was in the business. His wife's father was in the rodeo business as well. Like, this is deeply steeped in tradition. And he said, we're just going to hold it. We're going to hold it no matter what. We've got to pay our bills. We've got to save our industry. I got nothing to lose. And, I interviewed him last week, and he's just said, I don't care. Do what you want. We are holding this. We have to do it. And it's going to be a really good time because this is what he does. And the opportunity I see in this, though, is so many Albertans weren't quite sure. They might not want to go to a park to a rally, or they might not want to go to City Hall, things like this. But here, come on out. Go out on a weekend. Enjoy a rodeo, a family event. Have some fun. Get into some fresh air. And at the same time, you're making a statement telling the government that's enough. We're moving on.
Yeah. And I encourage people to be reasonable. I don't think it's any secret that, we're pretty anti-lockdown, and I'm against a lot of the restrictions that are out there, but we should still be careful. Don't make out with random people. Don't.
We'll use some common sense. Like, the only thing that would keep me from going this Saturday is if I woke up in the morning and I wasn't feeling good. And you know what?
Yeah.
If I wasn't, I wouldn't go. I'm not going to go there and spread something around. But
if you're not feeling well, don't go, please. I mean, this should be a responsible event. Don't let this become what its critics believe that it is. So don't play into their hands. Be responsible. Try not to crowd around people unnecessarily. But go if you want to go. Go. If you don't want to go, don't go. That's the beauty of choice here.
And I've been there. It's at the Bowden Rodeo grounds right in town there, just an hour and change out of Calgary. There's lots of room for people to spread out and enjoy themselves. You can still talk from whatever your comfortable distance is. Like it's a good event for this sort of thing. And we've seen it from the doomsayers before. We saw that with Super Bowl. We saw it with that baseball game in Texas. We saw it with Silver Lake last summer. They always say there's going to be massive infections afterward. It never happens. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So don't sweat it.
Just be responsible. Don't let this be what the lockdowners say it is. Let's just be reasonable about what we do there. Speaking of being there, the Western Standard's going to be there in force. I'm bringing the trailer up, spending the weekend, as I said. A bunch of us are. The Western Standard is. We're going to try. No promises yet, but we just began discussions around producing a live broadcast of the rodeo itself. So not just us talking on the camera about being at the rodeo, but actually streaming the rodeo live. If this is something that viewers and listeners are interested in, please let us know in the comments section, or you can email us at membership@westernstandardonline.com. Send us an email. Let us know if you support it. It'll be fairly expensive. We'd have to actually buy some new equipment that we could use actually to spruce up our studio here. Better cameras, better video, audio.
It'd be pretty.
Yeah, well, no one can pay for that. That'd be an expensive
Need that makeup
job.
department.
That'd be an expensive job.
Yeah.
But we would need some upgraded equipment. So if you're interested in us doing this, you can consider chipping in to help us buy some new audio-visual equipment. We would need some pretty good stuff to be able to live stream a rodeo like this. We couldn't just do this on a phone if it's going to be worth watching. So if you're interested, send us an email, membership@westernstandardonline.com. If you're interested in making a contribution, if you're not yet a member, go become a member. That'll help kick in towards it. We will let you know if we're going to be doing this. This is, again, no promises, but it's something we're interested in doing and covering live there.
I should, just expand a bit. So if you're on Facebook, it's preferred if you come in person. That's the best thing. You're making the statement. But the information is there at Northcott Rodeo if you look it up. And he's got all the competitor lists. They filled up fast. I mean, you can't forget all these athletes, these competitors. They've been sitting for a year. Like, they need to get out. They need to train. So he's got a load of barrel racing going on and an astounding amount of bull riding going on Saturday and Sunday. It starts at 1:00, just to get that info out there. You go to the Stampede, you'll see 7 bulls at the end of the run and everything. Well, if you like bull riding, you're going to see all kinds of bull riding going on this weekend. It's going to be a hoot.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Actually, and it's an easier way to even find more information, because he's got a difficult last name to spell. If you go to the Western Standard's website, you'll see an advertisement on the side. You can just click on that. It'll take you straight through. We've got a comment from Cheryl Dawn here. Says she'll chip in for a razor. Ooh la la.
My legs are pretty hairy too.
You can't see it, but Corey's actually wearing no pants beside me. He's a very hairy man. Thank you very much, Don. If you're interested, you can email Corey, cmorgan@westernstandardonline.com. Let him know where he'll give you an address where you can ship some razors. That's chipping in real grassroots style right there.
Trying to be efficient around here. User participation.
I've been in BC too long. I've got to get back to get you guys under control.
Well, I had to get the dry cleaning done, and I had to come downtown. I mean, we're covering a lot of ground at once. This is efficiency.
Well, there we go. Well, this has been an interesting broadcast today. Corey needs to go put some pants on and shave. And Dave, I know you've got to get back to the newsroom, so thank you both very much for joining me today.
Hey, you guys have a great time this weekend.
Well, today's show again was sponsored by endalbertalockdown.ca. That is different from the End the Lockdown Rodeo. Yes, I know everybody who's fighting against these things seems to be advertising with the Western Standard in one form or another. But you can check out endalbertalockdown.ca for more information about what you can do fighting against government overreach and lockdowns. Again, we want to thank our Western Standard members. If you're not yet a member, go to westernstandardonline.com/membership. Sign up. Try it free for 15 days. If you like it, keep going. If not, enjoy the CBC. Well, thank you all very much for joining me today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time or 9 a.m. Pacific Time for Nathan Gita and the Mountain Standard Time show. He's got some great guests coming up. I don't remember them off the top of my head. There's so many damn shows I can't keep track of it. But check out Nathan Gita on Mountain Standard Time every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And of course, Corey Morgan, check out every Monday and Friday at the same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 9 p.m. a.m. Pacific for the Corey Morgan Show. Thank you all very much for joining me today, joining all of us today. God bless.